Good evening, everybody, and thank you for attending this Planning and Community Affairs Committee meeting on March 22nd. And I will call this open session to order and call for a moment of silence. Thank you. I'll now call upon our clerk to do the roll call and go over the processes for tonight's meeting. Lee?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, for your information, Sandra Frey will be recording the minutes in eScribe this evening. Should we have any technical issues during the meeting, please be patient as we try to resolve them. If we are unable to, then we will carry on with the meeting, provided that the live stream is still operating and all members of council, staff, and the public are still able to fully participate. I will now conduct a roll call to ascertain which members of council are present. Mayor Drew is present. Councillor Watton, are you present?
I am present.
Thank you. Councillor McDougall?
Present, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Guido?
Present, thank you.
Councillor Ross?
Present, thank you.
Councillor Kiesbrink?
Present.
And Councillor Brown?
Present.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, I can confirm that we have a quorum for this meeting. I will now list the staff who are present in alphabetical order. This evening we have Adam Dubecki, Carol Coleman, Ken Nix, our CAO, Kevin Arsenault, Kevin Heritage, Laura Barta, Lori Bowers, Chief Mark Burney, Robin Prentice, and Sandra Frey. Is there any member of staff present who I did not mention? Hearing nothing, I will continue on. Also in attendance with respect to item number 11.2 are David Brand, Scott Waterhouse, and Deborah Gross. As in previous electronic meetings, I will now review the rules for the meeting. Please mute your microphone while not talking. This will avoid any background noise that may occur where you are and will avoid any echo of the audio. Please use headphones as this will also improve the audio quality. If you would like to speak, please use the hand raise function in the meeting. The mayor will then call upon you when it's your turn. For members of council, if you leave your computer, please let the mayor know so that quorum can continue to be met. When moving or seconding a motion, please use the hand raise function in the meeting and the mayor will announce who the mover and seconder are. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed to the township's YouTube channel. We will be conducting votes verbally this evening. The mayor will ask members to indicate if they are in favor or against a motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor. That concludes my opening statement.
Thank you very much, Lee. Now I'll ask for a disclosure of pecuniary interest and the nature thereof. Any member of council have a pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we'll move on. Announcements from council and staff. Any announcements from council? Councillor Brown?
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor, I got an email from Scott Watson, who's with Government and Community Affairs with Canada Post. I just wanted to advise people that, and I'll just read part of his email if I may. I wanted to let you know about some upcoming changes to some postal codes in the area. These restructures are due in part to the growth in the area and a change to our routes. Customers will be notified in mid-April 2021. They will also receive 12 months of free mail forwarding for the old postal codes. This change will affect 236 points of call. 231 of these locations are currently in L9L1B2, which he suggests is covered by wards 5 and 1. That's my understanding, and that's my postal code. 3 points of call are in L9L1B3, which is wards 1 and 2. 2 others in Stouffville. So just to advise people that there are changes coming when it comes to mail in those areas for the month of April. Thank you.
Thank you.
And are there any other members of council? Okay, we'll move on to, Councillor Watton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And just I just wanted to mention that plans are underway for Port Perry's sesquicentennial anniversary, and we started that by initiating a flag banner design contest, which we are hoping that will be designed and prepared to officially recognize the start of the festivities on June 9th at 2 o'clock. Would like to make everyone aware that all the events that are being planned through a COVID lens. So there won't be any large gatherings or entertainment venues or anything like that, but there'll be simple things, you know, for the theme of community celebrating community, because you know, we've come a long way, and last year is no exception. So I think the theme of community celebrating community is appropriate and a good way to celebrate both our past and our present day situation, as well as our outlook to moving forward towards recovery. So stay tuned. Very early stages at this point, but I can say that the flag banner design contest ad has gone out and will be in the focus for the 1st of April edition. And as soon as I get the rules completely put together, we will be able to see them also on scugog.ca. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I'm also happy to take any suggestions anyone has for any events throughout the upcoming or through this coming summer. Again, through the lens of a COVID pandemic that may or may not allow us to open up more fully. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and that's it for today's announcement on regarding that 150th celebration.
Oh, thank you, Councillor Watton, and we certainly appreciate your taking the lead on this little adventure. And are there any questions for Councillor Watton from members of council on the sesquicentennial? Seeing none, I'm sure that Councillor Watton would welcome your help and your questions should they arise. So thank you very much, Councillor Watton. Chief Burney.
Thank you, Mayor Drew. I have a couple of things to share with you. First is I'm excited that the 3 vaccination sites in North Durham are soon to be opening, beginning with Uxbridge on March 29th, followed by clinics in Scugog on March 31st and in Brock on April 3rd. These clinics will operate on a rotating basis every week, with 1 clinic scheduled for Brock and 2 clinics scheduled for Uxbridge and Scugog on a weekly basis. All clinics will open from 10:30 a.m. until 8:30 p.m. And beginning today at 11 a.m., they were taking appointments for residents 75 years of age and older. That is residents in their 75th year. And those residents can book appointments by going to the Durham.ca vaccine appointment website or by calling the 1-888 number. It's 1-888-444-5113. And again, I would encourage all residents eligible to make their appointment to do so. Next, I'd like to speak to those same residents and suggest that if they're challenged with modes of transportation to a vaccine clinic, to go to our website, scugog.ca, and hit on the red control banner for more information about obtaining either low-cost transportation or free transportation to any of the vaccination clinics in the north. And then lastly, Mayor Drew, I'd like to ask you and council and the residents listening to have the families and residents and first responders of those affected by this morning's loss of life and injury in Oshawa's tragic fire, to have them in your thoughts. It's a very difficult time for all, and a very challenging time to keep their apple green. And with that, I can't say strongly enough that how important it is to have working smoke alarms and a family fire safety plan at home, just in case. Thank you, Mayor Drew. That's it.
Thank you, Chief, and certainly, yes, the victims from this morning's fire certainly should be in our thoughts and our prayers, and very, very tragic. Director Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor Drew. I'd just like to announce that this Wednesday, March 24th, is a province-wide School Crossing Guard Appreciation Day. And so we are asking people to show their support and appreciation for their neighborhood crossing guards on this day. If you go to our website, there are thank you cards that you can print, and you can have your children sign them and give them to your local crossing guard. And from the township, I would just like to say a big thank you to all of our crossing guards for all the hard work they do to keep all of our young children safe as they go to and from school, and they're there in all kinds of weather. And one more thing, if we can still use some more crossing guards, especially during this time of COVID, people are off for health reasons, and it's really important that we have enough spares available to keep all the crossings covered. So if anyone is interested in being a crossing guard, to please contact the township, and we would love to talk to you about it.
That was a great segue, Director Coleman. Yes, we have proclaimed this event on March 24th, and I hope that everyone will express their appreciation to our crossing guards. As you say, they're out there in all kinds of weather, keeping our children, and not only our children, anybody else that happens to be around, they're certainly willing and able to help others cross the road as well. So we thank them for keeping our community safe. Any other announcements? Okay, seeing none. We have a few presentations tonight, and the first one is under 10.1, the Waterfront Action Plan, the preferred plan. And I'll call on Robin Prentice, our Manager of Planning, to talk about the presentation. Robin?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, this presentation is intended to provide an overview of the Waterfront Action Plan report and associated staff report that's on tonight's agenda. So if I can just get the next slide, please. Just wanted to remind Council what the purpose of the study was with respect to the Waterfront Action Plan. It was, the planning partnership was retained to complete a plan for the waterfront lands, which makes, and the report itself makes recommendations for the short, medium, and long term with respect to actions under a number of theme areas or lenses, with respect to recreation, natural and cultural heritage features, economic development and tourism on the waterfront, and to ensure that Port Perry continues to be a vibrant and thriving community for residents and visitors. Next slide, please. Just wanted to bring up the project schedule to help outline the process to date. The project was based on a 3-phase work program. As part of the first phase, the project team completed an inventory and analysis of existing conditions along the waterfront. Input from this phase was used to help shape various options that were explored in phase 2. A series of design workshops were held, and based on the feedback from those workshops, the project team prepared 3 concept options that were released for public review and feedback, including an online interactive survey.
Can I interrupt for a second, please, Robin? We're not seeing the slides.
Oh, okay. I'll just wait a minute.
Sandra, are you able to put them up?
I'll just double check, Mayor Drew, just a moment.
Do we need to take a break, Sandra, or are you having some luck? You're on mute, Sandra. Robin or Lee, do you have access to take over the screen at all?
If Sandra wants to grant access, then we can share our screens. Robin, do you have a copy of the presentation if you're granted access?
I do, yeah.
Okay. Sandra, are you able to allow Robin to present?
You're on mute, Sandra. Adam, can you grant Robin access to the screen? Okay. Sandra, can you unmute and tell us what the situation is? Well, maybe what we can do then is go to the second presentation. Robin, does that have slides as well?
It does. Oh, she's opening something on her screen, I see. I'm happy to move forward to that presentation if you'd like me to. It does have slides. Again, the slides I'm speaking to are just information that's in the report. So on the waterfront, I'm speaking to the information that's in the reports. It's just on a slide. So I'm happy to continue with that, or if we can pull up one of the attachments with the plan, I can just speak to that.
Okay, so you want to go ahead with you feel comfortable going ahead with the Waterfront Action Plan presentation then?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, then please go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to take a step back and pretend you're not seeing anything then. So yeah, I went over a bit what the study purpose was, and all of this is outlined in the staff report as well as the Waterfront Plan report. And the Waterfront Plan report itself included an executive summary also to provide a kind of summary of the larger report. And the reason it was attached in multiple attachments to the e-scribe or to the agenda is because just due to the size of the document. Once you get all those nice pictures in the report, it kind of creates a larger document. So we wanted to make it a bit more manageable to open. So just with respect to the process, we completed the Waterfront Action Plan project over 3 phases. As part of the first phase, as I mentioned, the project team kind of went and did their background inventory and analysis of all the existing conditions along the waterfront. And we used the input from that phase to help put together some options as part of phase 2. And in phase 2, we held a series of design workshops where people could come in and work with the designers and kind of piece together some different options. So from that series of workshops, we actually had 9 different concepts. So the project team took the feedback from those workshops and all those different concepts and created these 3 concept options. And from that, we released those for even more public review and comment and feedback, including an online survey where people could go in and click through some of the different elements. And we weren't necessarily asking for which of these concepts do you like best. It was more just trying to gauge feedback on which of the elements that were preferred within those options. And from that feedback, we moved into phase 3, where the project team took all that feedback and created a preferred plan that, again, we took back out to the public as part of a workshop, and as well, we posted it on our website, where people could provide more feedback in terms of what they were seeing, and where we're capturing the feedback properly that we've heard throughout the process, And here's what we've kind of put together in terms of, based on all that consultation, a preferred plan. And we generally got some good feedback on what that preferred plan was coming out to be. So I did have a slide that kind of I thought was great with respect to capturing all of the consultation that we completed for this project. As the mayor likes to say, this is one of the projects that we've had extensive consultation with the public on. We've had a number of workshops, including the design workshops. We had different online social media post or picture surveys and a lot of responses and posts on social media and some pop-up information sessions. We had some sessions focused with youth where we actually got out to a school before COVID into classrooms and dealing with the kids and getting their feedback. And we also held a youth focused session virtually during COVID once we had the preferred plan to get their feedback on where we were going with the plan. So those I think were helpful to provide some of that feedback from the younger generation. We had a number of interviews and discussions with council and presentations to council throughout the process. We established a waterfront steering committee that were based on a number of different interest groups and agencies and held meetings with them. We had ongoing discussions with the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nations and a lot of input through social media and emails and telephone calls. So a lot of consultation on this project throughout the 18-month process. And I just wanted to remind, there was a slide that helped to remind people that there was a number of different inputs that we have to, or the project team had to consider as we were putting together the preferred plan. Public feedback that we got through the process, the different community groups throughout the municipality, council's feedback from staff and the steering committee, as well as the project consultants as well. So a lot of feedback that we had to compile and kind of weave together to create the action plan that's on the agenda tonight. So when we were exploring the options and putting together their preferred plan, these were all based on a number of assumptions or givens, we call them, such as maintaining and repurposing the old mill, incorporating a new urban square at the foot of Queen Street, identifying a location for the William Leachman sculpture within the waterfront, taking into consideration the relocation of the regional sanitary pumping station, and that was kind of a process that was going alongside this waterfront project. And the region has since identified a preferred site, so we kind of had to incorporate that and what that meant in terms of the waterfront plan itself. We assumed that the Lake Scugog Enhancement Project, which is also being worked on, was in place or would be in place, so we kind of took that into consideration. We also looked at how it would integrate with a potential Queen Street or Open Streets project, as well as the potential removal or relocation of the Latcham Center and what that would mean within the space. So the preferred plan itself, which is attached to the report, is based on a series of these lenses, based on some elements from recreation. It included arts and cultural heritage. It looked at the natural heritage and environmental hazards. It looked at circulation within the site, both pedestrian, cycling, as well as parking. And it looked at economic development and tourism and what opportunities there were in this space for those elements. So just to provide a bit of a summary in terms of what was coming out of the preferred plan, in the north section, up by the boat launch, we looked at how we could improve the boat launch area and consider an area for including a launch for small kayaks and canoes and more smaller watercraft, as well as a tie-up for more transient boats. That was a big thing. Boating's very big on Lake Scugog, and so that was something we heard a lot of in terms of providing that support. We also wanted to look at improving pedestrian access along Old Rail Line, as well as trails throughout Birdseye Park to connect to the water's edge through a boardwalk or potential trail through that space. Improving and incorporating some waterside terraces in front of the library there, as well as a potentially new community facility that would replace the existing Marina building and Latcham Center and combine them into a multi-purpose facility. And it would provide some connections in with the old mill there with respect to some enhancements in that urban square at the bottom of Queen Street. The central, more Palmer Park area was left more natural and provides a space for active and passive recreation, as well as cultural events, walking, nature interpretation. We looked at enhancements with a stone wall built into the grade coming off of Water Street there that would provide some additional seating and could help for viewing different events that are taking place in the space. And then we also looked at the preferred plan is looking at a potential removal or relocation of the northern ball diamond. And in that place, or in place of that, if that ball diamond was to be relocated, we would look to create some youth-focused activity zone. So kind of building on the existing playground and splash pad and enhancing those areas for the smaller children and building on that for more of an older age group for the kids in that area. And creating a space where you could have basketball or things like that in that area. So there's more of an opportunity for more active sports, and you could, if there was a space potentially for some pickleball courts, the tennis and the southern base, so softball, baseball diamond would be maintained, as well as some improvements to the washrooms or the picnic shelter in that area. In the southern part, where it's more privately owned, but there is still that public link, it was providing more of the connections and trails throughout the space, but also providing some of those urban design principles and making sure they're established to help guide that private development in that area, so that it takes into account the important waterfront in that area. There was costs, an order or a high level of cost estimates were included in the report. These, because they're high level, we do recognize that the details would come over time with respect to the size of different elements and like for the community facilities for structure, what you'd have to look at the details of how big it is and what type of design you look at. So there are some high level costs as well as some high level consideration to some maintenance and operating costs associated with some of these elements. It is recognized that some of the larger elements would be required or would be dependent on funding and grant programs. We're seeing that with the Lake Gulag Enhancement Project and just how funding and grants are very important to some of these things. But having a plan such as that we've put together for the waterfront helps to provide a basis that we can move forward with some of those details and putting the designs together that sets it up for us to apply for some of these grants over time. The plan itself would also be put towards budget processes as we move forward with our annual budget program and take a look at how we can implement the plan over time. The plan itself also put together a somewhat phasing strategy or implementation strategy, looking at what you could do within the short term, within the next 5 years, but also how you can build it over time through the 10-year and beyond period. With respect to some of the phasing in the short term, I thought it was important to show that even our budget for 2021 and the next few years that we have planned starts to implement some of the elements you're seeing within the plan as it's put out in the preferred plan. So some of the elements in our budget for 2021 include some looking at the replacement of some of the playground features within Palmer Park, replacing the picnic shelter and how that would fit into this plan, designing some updates to the change rooms at Bird's Eye Pool and how that builds out with construction in the next few years, some improvements and an extension of the dock at the boat launch at the north end, as well as looking at washroom facilities and the reconstruction of Water Street and how we can create and enhance the pedestrian opportunities with Water Street and how it connects with the waterfront, as well as the Lake Gulag Enhancement Project, as I mentioned, which is looking at funding as well. And then it also looks, as I mentioned, to some of those things that you'd see over the longer term, some of the elements, as I mentioned, that are dependent on other things, such as the removal or relocation of the northern baseball diamond. And then obviously once that's done, then you can look at what is replaced in that space at that time, as well as once the pumping station is relocated and what you could use that space for once it is removed. So that was just a brief overview of my presentation, and I apologize that you weren't able to see the slides, but I'm happy to provide them at any point. And that concludes my presentation, Madam Mayor.
Well, thank you very much, Robin. And perhaps when the report comes forward, some of those key slides can be put up so that we can all see them. I know we have them in our agenda, but for purposes of those people that are watching tonight, maybe we could have that up, and we'll hope so. So Robin, you had the lead on this project, and I'm sure you're happy and proud tonight to present this outstanding preferred plan. Congratulations to you and the planning partnership, Director Heritage, senior staff, and all those staff who assisted. And with the work of Director Bowers for communications, the input from the public was tremendously successful, and we thank the hundreds of people in our community who contributed with their thoughtful insights on how we all want our waterfront to look like in the fullness of time. And all the demographics were represented with that feedback. We even felt that we didn't get a strong enough feedback from our youth, and reached out especially to our youth to get their feedback as well. We got some great ideas. So we're all anxious to see the whole design come to fruition, but this is a long-term project, and this council and future councils will not let this plan gather dust. But now, with a design in place, we will be eligible to apply for grants, and apply we will, because we will be dependent on these grants to move ahead piece by piece on the waterfront project. In fact, with the aid of grants, we are starting this year with the picnic shelter. And plans for public washrooms are in the capital budget this year, and the build for the washrooms is presently scheduled for 2022. And in addition, as you mentioned, the improvements to the children's playground in Palmer Park. So the economic drivers in Scugog Township are tourism and agriculture. We are already a daycation destination, but the completion of this project will really put us on the map. It will take time and opportunities, but in the years to come, we will get there, and it will be outstanding for Scugog and the region of Durham. So thank you very much again, Robin, for your presentation tonight. I'm sure you're quite excited. You sound it. And I will be asking now for a motion to receive the presentation. We do have another presentation and some delegations, and then the Waterfront Action Plan preferred plan will come as a report after that, and we can ask our questions of the report and the presentation at that time, if that's okay with everybody. So a motion to receive the presentation by Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor Guido. And I'll ask for a verbal. All those in favor say yes.
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 Opposed, say no. And that is carried. Thank you very much again, Robin. And now we'll move to your second presentation, 10.2 on our agenda. And this is the zoning bylaw amendment application and draft plan of subdivision application for Chieftain Development Corporation, 234 Union Avenue, Port Perry. And I'll ask Robin Prentice again to make the presentation, and joining her and available for questions is David Brand and is it Scott Waterhouse? So
Yes.
please go ahead, Robin.
Sorry,
you,
Madam
Madam Mayor.
Mayor.
Oh,
Sorry,
go ahead,
Robin, if I could interrupt for just a moment. I don't see David or Scott on the list of attendees, and I'm wondering if it's because Sandra needs to let them into the meeting and she's having trouble with Teams at the moment. As the meeting organizer, I believe she's the one who has to allow them to attend.
I see. Yes. Okay, Robin, maybe you could go ahead with the presentation, and hopefully by the time we're ready for questions that that will be sorted out. Does that work for you, Robin?
That works for me.
Okay.
Does Councillor Guido have a question?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, not a question, but as this is rather an important presentation, will we be able to see the presentation online, or perhaps we should restart if necessary so Ms. Fry can get the presentation up?
So, Robin, do you have slides on this one?
I do have slides. They are based on the information that's in the report. But I'm happy to, if we want to take a break and see if we can get this restarted with the slides, happy to do so. I'm happy either way. I'm kind of at the whim of what council would like.
Okay,
Madam,
it is.
Madam Mayor, if you
yes.
don't mind, I'm sorry to interrupt. I do believe that we should take a 5-minute break to.
Yeah, I was just
try
going
to
to
get
say
this
it's
together.
7:07. Why don't we break until 7:15 and hopefully these technical issues could be worked out. Is
Thank
that
you.
agreeable? Okay, so thank you. At 7:07, we'll be back at 7:15. Thank you. We're on now, Adam? Okay, thank you. Welcome back, everyone. At 7:15, I think we have our technical issues worked out, and I'll call on Robin Prentice again, and Scott Waterhouse, I believe, is here. And is David Brand here? Well, please go ahead, Robin.
Sure, Madam Mayor, thank you. I believe they're still trying to get in. Scott,
David
perhaps?
is here, I see. David is here.
Okay, great. Scott will hopefully try and get in shortly. So thank you, Madam Mayor. Apologies for the technical difficulties we're having, but I presume everyone can see my screen now and see the slides. So I'll just continue that way, and please let me know if anything else pops up. So my presentation is just to provide an overview of the staff report that's before the committee tonight regarding the draft plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment applications that were submitted by Chieftain Development Corporation for the lands at Union Avenue and Josephine Street in the south end of Port Perry. The subject lands are primarily regarding the property at 234 Union Avenue, but they do also, the zoning application also includes a portion of the registered RIBCOR development for the lots that you see outlined on the screen at Union Avenue and Forest Laneway, where some of these lots cross the property boundaries onto the Chieftain property as well. And the intention was just to ensure that the zoning is consistent for all of the lots in this area that cross these boundaries. The
Excuse me
lands
for
are
a moment,
designated.
Robin. Excuse me, Robin.
Sure, go ahead.
Sorry about this. Could I ask those that are on the call to turn off their microphones, because we're just getting a little bit of feedback every now and again. So I see some microphones on. If you wouldn't mind just turning off your microphone while the presentation is on. Thanks. Sorry about that, Robin. Please go ahead.
Not a problem. So I was just going to outline, as you can see on the township's official plan, the lands are designated residential and open space. The portion that is designated residential in the official plan signifies that the lands were planned for development purposes, for residential purposes, and the official plan supports a range of housing types and uses within this area. The portion that is designated open space is proposed to be a park block, and that is where the larger woodlot is on this property that is proposed to be protected and maintained as part of that park block. In another schedule on the official plan, there is also a proposed local road connection, and that is the Forest Laneway connection from Union Avenue to Ash Street. The proposed plan that is before council tonight has changed from the original plan that was submitted initially with the applications back in 2018. When the applications came in 2018, the hedgerow along Union Avenue was proposed to be removed. Since that time, staff have worked with the developer to look at protecting the majority of the trees in this hedgerow along Union Avenue. And that is why the plan has changed to incorporate a 7-meter wide landscape strip in this area, which is where the trees are located, and the majority of the trees would be protected as part of this block. The majority of the subdivision plan would result in a 27 single detached dwellings. There are also 5 park blocks that I mentioned earlier that cross over the boundary into RIBCOR. These blocks will be merged with the portion of the blocks on RIBCOR to become lots that houses will also be built on. In the north end, as I mentioned, is where the woodlot is located. And this is part of the park block that will be conveyed to the township ultimately, as well as the majority of the hedgerow along Union Avenue is located within the landscape strip. And that strip would also be conveyed to the township. Once they're conveyed to the township would own these lands, and we would be able to maintain and protect the trees within these areas. The proposed zoning bylaw, the lands are currently zoned future development and R1 and the Ripcore lands. They're proposed to be zoned open space where the park block and the woodlot is located, as well as the landscape strip would be proposed to be zoned open space. The rest of the area is proposed to be rezoned to urban residential multiple type 3 with a series of exceptions to help accommodate some site-specific conditions for some of these areas, and primarily dealing with the corner lots. As part of our application review process, we've held a public open house and a public meeting, and we also created a page on the MyScugog website to help provide information and gather feedback from residents throughout the process. As I initially said, the applications were submitted in 2018 and some revisions to the plans have taken place over time. So these avenues allowed us to provide that information back out to the public. And we have received a number of comments on this application, as outlined in attachment 3 to the report. The majority of the comments received were regarding the trees on the site, and more specifically the hedgerow along Union Avenue. As I've mentioned, the plan has been revised over time, and staff have worked with the developer to create a landscape strip along this area where the hedgerow is located that would see the majority of the trees protected as part of this strip and dedicated to the township, so that we will ultimately own this land where the trees are located. The only works that we would see within that strip is a required servicing connection that is needed between the cul-de-sac out to Union Avenue. Staff have worked with the developer and the region to explore different alternatives for this servicing connection as part of our review. Unfortunately, no other options have been deemed feasible. We will continue to work with the developer in the region through the more detailed design for the alignment of that servicing connection and continue to explore ways to minimize the impacts of this connection on the trees. It is anticipated that only a few trees may be impacted, but we also did retain a landscape architect as part of this application review process to review some of these initial plans. And their feedback to us was that while the servicing connection may impact a few of the trees within the hedgerow, the majority would be protected as part of the landscape strip. Staff would also look at tree protection measures along this landscape strip as well as the woodlot during construction to ensure that these areas are protected from the construction practices. Just with respect to next steps, staff are recommending that council adopt the zoning bylaw and endorse the subdivision plan as per the staff report that is on tonight's agenda. If those recommendations are supported by committee tonight, the zoning bylaw will be brought back to council on March 29th. And following that, if council passes that amendment bylaw, there would be a notice that would be issued by the township, which would outline a 20-day appeal period. So should no appeals be received within that 20 days, the zoning would then be in effect. The township's decision on the subdivision plan is sent to the region of Durham because they are the approval authority for subdivision plans within the township of Scugog. So the region of Durham will ultimately make the final decision on the subdivision application. If the subdivision and the zoning is approved by the township and the region, the developer would start detailed design by putting together some of their detailed engineering submissions, and they would submit a request for a subdivision agreement in order to move forward with their plans for construction. As part of this process, we've put together a number of conditions as outlined in attachment 4 to the report, which outline that some of these studies do need to be updated as part of detailed design, and those requirements would have to be met to the township's approval before we would proceed with construction and registration. Subdivision agreements are also required with the township and the region. That is my presentation, Madam Mayor, and I'm happy to answer any questions council may have as needed.
Thank you very much, Robin. Are there any questions from council on the presentation? Councillor Guido?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Not necessarily a question at this point. I just wanted to ask if we will be bringing the report forward, because most of my questions would likely be addressed at the time of the report.
Yeah, we're going to have a delegation after this, and then we'll bring the report forward.
I'll hold my questions till then. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McDougall? You're muted, Councillor McDougall. Your microphone is off, Councillor McDougall.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry, I just running two screens on one computer here. Just a quick question for Ms. Prentice, if I might. There was a lot of reference to the official plan in terms of the subdivision development and what might be moving forward. Just with regards to active transportation along Union Avenue, I see I think it's designated as a collector road in the official plan, and I think collector roads are to have sidewalks and perhaps cycling lanes and such. That would help to mitigate the effects of traffic and people moving into neighborhoods, especially in the urban area, for people to be able to get around without taking their cars everywhere. Will that be provided on at this development site?
So as part of protecting the landscape strip, it was determined that any sidewalk on the west side of Union Avenue in front of the hedgerow would impact the trees. So the township has made the decision, staff have taken the opinion that we will not be pursuing a sidewalk in front of the hedgerow on Union Avenue in this location, but anywhere else that a sidewalk is required, it would be put in as part of the development.
So if I might through you further, Madam Mayor, so will the sidewalk just stop kind of at each end of the hedgerow? Is that the intention?
So there's a driveway that comes out on the south side of the hedgerow. The sidewalk would continue along from that driveway and around the corner onto Josephine Street with respect to this development. There would also be a sidewalk connection on the north side of Forest Laneway in front of the Ribcore development ultimately.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Any other questions from council? I would just like to say, I see Mr. Brand is on the call, and how much we appreciate your cooperation in providing that hedgerow for us and for our residents, because there was quite a lot of concern about that. Did you wish, I see you've turned your microphone on, did you wish to reply to that, Mr. Brand?
Madam Mayor, we're pleased to have worked out a compromise with staff, and we're satisfied with the plan and look forward to your support.
Thank you very much. I'm looking for a motion to receive the presentation, please. Councillor Watton, seconder. Councillor Guido. All those in favor of receiving the presentation, say aye or yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
In favor, Madam Mayor.
Favor.
Opposed? Hearing none, that is carried. And we'll move on to the delegation 10.3. And I welcome Ms. Gross. You can turn your microphone on, Ms. Gross. You have 5 minutes. And I see in the report that you have been in contact with staff and have provided a lot of feedback, and we certainly appreciate that. Please go ahead. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Will my question is to Robin, will all the documented reports be updated to the current 2020 Chieftain Plan before your Planning Committee recommendations go to Council for voting?
Robin, could you answer that?
Sure, through you, Madam Mayor, the recommendations would go to committee tonight and be brought back to council, ratified by council next Monday. So no, the intention is that any of the detailed reports would be updated as part of detailed design once drafted plan approval is in place.
Okay, then I want to know how the rezoning application considered by council without the supporting documentation being within the report to make a knowledgeable decision, especially with the Chieftain Arborist report of 2018, which contradicts itself about the hedgerow trees. And also it states to take down all 24 trees. What safeguards and prevention measures have you put into place that a chieftain contractor does not look at the older plan and cut down with the 24 Norway space going, oops. So shouldn't we do due diligence at presenting all the facts to the town council instead of just giving them the facts that you've given now? All the reports are essential for having maximum information to make a knowledgeable decision, which I know the mayor and the town council would like to do.
Robin, the inclusion of the 24 trees, is that in the attachment 4?
Yes, so the attachment 1 shows the plan that you're that we're asking for approval or endorsement of for draft plan approval. That includes the 7-meter wide landscape strip that would see the trees, the majority of the trees protected. Then attachment 4 outlines staff's recommended conditions for that draft plan approval that would have to be met as we proceed through detailed design and ultimately through to construction. So that includes some of the updates, such as the update to the tree preservation plan is part of that, is one of those conditions. And that would be something that would require township staff sign off on prior to proceeding with constructions. We also have different requirements in place with respect to administrative meetings and pre-construction meetings with the developer and all their contractors to go through all the approved plans and ultimately through to detailed design. And those approved plans are what are included in our subdivision agreement ultimately.
Thank you.
Would I have one last question? It's an easy one. Would the township also consider retaining a qualified certified tree arborist and tree risk assessor in addition to chieftain's qualified professional as outlined in assessment 4 draft plan conditions item 24 to ensure the township owned 24 Norway spruce are protected at all possible manner beginning to end of the construction process that is required?
So through you, Madam Mayor, the township, as part of our review of the application, actually retained an arborist landscape architect to review the plans on the township's behalf. And so they were reviewing the developer's consultants' reports and plans, as well as the revised plans, and they provided input to the township on our behalf. So yes, we would continue to have that arborist review the detailed plans as we move forward.
Good, because we would hate to see, I know this possibly will not happen with Chieftain because I know they're reputable, but we have seen in the past where a developer has gone in with instructions to a contractor to do with their job, but unfortunately the trees that were meant to be saved were cut down and then nothing can be done after they're gone. And the other part of the plan that we've talked about is the servicing. Basically, the impact to the root system from the machinery to dig for that connection for servicing could crush the integrated roots of the trees. And since we're working very diligently with everyone to save, protect, and preserve the 24 Norway spruce, is that possible to look at other alternatives, even though right now they may not show themselves?
Robin, do you wish to address that?
Sure. So as I mentioned in my presentation, staff have looked at those other alternatives with both the developer and the region. The servicing connection is subject to the region's requirements because water and sewer infrastructure is under the region of Durham's jurisdiction and subject to their requirements. So, and working together, no feasible alternative other than having the servicing connection go through the landscape strip was deemed feasible. So that's why we are being very upfront in terms of that would be the only connection that would be, or any works would be allowed in the servicing or in the landscape strip area, sorry. And as I mentioned to you, as we move forward with the detailed design of what that looks like as part of the engineering submission, we would work to minimize any impacts of that connection on the hedgerow. This is also something that we discussed with the arborist that we had to review the plans, and his feedback was that while it is acknowledged that a few of the trees will be impacted by this connection, it would not be detrimental to the health of the rest of the hedgerow. So that's why we chose to move forward with working with the developer to come up with this revised plan to see the majority of the trees protected.
Okay, thank you.
So
And
Ms. Gross, your time is up. Could you wrap up, please?
absolutely. Because of the unknown, you have no idea how many trees will be killed for the servicing connection and where that servicing connection would be in the hedgerow of the 24 Norway trees. A tree assessor evaluation besides a landscape architect certified arborist would be able to assist you even more with that impact. And you would get a better idea of how we can preserve as many of the 24 Norway spruce, even though we would like to preserve all 24.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gross. We will take your comments into consideration. Councillor Watton, you have a question?
I was just going to ask for clarification how many actual trees there are, because at several times Ms. Gross has talked about retaining all 24, and I've heard Robin say that for the servicing there will be a couple that need to be removed. So is there more than 24 and we want to retain 24, or is it 24 in total? And it's possible that one or two may be lost through to a servicing connection. Just asking for clarification, please.
Robin?
Sure, through you, Madam Mayor. As I've noted, there is no detailed design yet for that servicing connection. That would be done at the next stage. So until we have the detailed design and understand the exact location and the exact extent of that connection, we won't know exactly how many trees. The arborist has taken a look at some of the conceptual plans that are done as part of this initial stage. And as I said, we don't know a definitive number at this time, but their estimate was only a couple trees would be impacted.
So currently we have 24. Robin, we have 24 now.
No, so I would just like to clarify that. Sorry, I'm pulling up my reports. I had to close when I was presenting. In our peer reviewer's report, he doesn't refer to the total hedgerow being 24 trees. So I do think there is a difference of opinion in terms of how many trees are made up or make up the hedgerow initially. Just let me see here. He refers to 18 Norway spruce being made, being within that hedgerow along Union Avenue.
Further, Councillor Watton?
Thank you. I just wanted to, I mean, I don't want to talk about more trees than we have, and I don't want to lose more trees than we need to. So I was just trying to make sure that everyone was on the same page for what we have, and I respecting that we can't fully say the impact of a service connection until we have detailed design, but it would be helpful to know exactly how many trees we have and so on. So I was just trying to get an idea of that, because I too didn't find it to be all of the same. So thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'll just leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watton. Councillor McDougall.
Yes, thank you, Madam.
This is questions of the delegation.
No, not questions of the delegation.
Councillor Watton was just getting something for clarification. So is this to the delegation?
No, this is not to the delegation. I can wait.
To the report. Okay. Councillor Guido, to the delegation?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Please go ahead. Oh, it's to the report, is it then, Councillor Guido?
I'm sorry, I thought I unmuted my microphone. No, it is to the delegate, please.
Okay, please go ahead.
Ms. Gross, thank you very much for your your delegation this evening. If I can ask for you to re-explain what your request was in regards to a peer review to that should be retained to help determine potential damage to tree roots. What was the name of that profession called that you were asking for?
It is a tree risk assessor.
Tree risk
Assessor. They are a certified tree arborist, and a tree risk assessor, in addition to what Chieftain is already proposing, would be able to identify immediately the impacts of any kind of servicing to the hedgerow of the Norway spruce along Union.
Perfect, thank you. Madam Mayor, if I have a question of staff regarding the tree risk assessor, would you like me to wait until we pull the report?
No, go ahead, because we're on the subject now, so please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Ms. Prentice, the arborists that we have peer reviewed this or will be peer reviewing, do they have a tree risk assessor on staff, if you're aware?
That I do not know off the top of my head,
Okay.
but I do know the person that we retained to review the plans did their own site work, was out on site, did look at the trees, they did all that great work. They also are very well educated and very passionate about trees, and while they are a landscape architect, they are a certified arborist as well.
Thank you. If it would be possible to determine if they are in fact a tree risk assessor as well, Ms. Prentice, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything further, Councillor Guido?
Not to the delegate, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Did I have, we've got a motion to receive the presentation. So we'll move on to the report now. Wait a minute, is that the first one? No, the Waterfront Action Plan is the first report. But why don't we bring this one forward now with your grace, please, Council. Well, why don't we move this report forward now while our guests are here. So 11.2 is the Chieftain report. Questions to the report? Robin, did you have anything else you wanted to say about the report?
Sorry, Madam Mayor. No, nothing further, but happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. The recommendations are there. Can I have a mover, please, to get it on the table? Councillor McDougall, seconded by Councillor Watton. Questions to the report? Councillor McDougall? You're muted, Councillor McDougall.
Sorry, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion that we refer this report back to the Scugog Environmental Committee, who's developing a heritage tree registry program right now, and as well the Accessibility Committee with regards to the sidewalk access on Union Avenue.
Oh, we got a seconder for motion to refer. Councillor Ross, on the motion to refer.
Yes, I'll second that. Thank you very much.
Do I have any speakers to the motion to refer? Seeing none, or Councillor Guido?
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I wish my buttons would work quicker. I do have a question on this motion. Should
to
it
refer?
To refer, yes, pardon me.
Okay, please go ahead.
Should it pass, what exactly does that mean to timelines? And not that I am disputing what Councillor McDougall and Councillor Ross are requesting by any means, and perhaps those committees have already been consulted. But what does this mean for timelines?
Robin?
Sure, through you, Madam Mayor. The applicant, the township is well beyond our timelines, I guess, as outlined in the Planning Act. So the applicant could appeal for non-decision at any point in time.
And
If
what does that
the
mean,
input
Ms.
you were looking
Prentice?
for. If they appeal for a non-decision, it goes, the matters go before the LPAT, and council, it would be up to the LPAT at that point in time to hear the application. So it would go, it would be referred to the LPAT, and the LPAT would determine, well, either that would be that would be a discussion with this council at that time, should they choose to appeal for non-decision.
Thank you. And further, if I may, have those two committees been consulted on the issue of the no sidewalk or the removal of the trees?
I can't speak to what consultation was done with those committee in the initial part of these applications, as that was prior to my being involved with them. We do provide notice to the public with respect to any applications as through our website. So, but in terms of my direct involvement, I have not personally consulted with those two committees. I did just want to clarify the work being done with the Environmental Advisory Committee and whether it's focused on development or whether it's focused on a tree policy for private landholders.
Director Heritage, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The original application was not forwarded to those two committees. As Ms. Prentice indicated, the original plan proposed a sidewalk on the west side of Union Avenue with the removal of the hedgerow. So now we're dealing with that hedgerow, and any sidewalk being located on the west side of Union Avenue would have a detrimental impact on that hedgerow. So that's where it's at now.
Thank you. Anything further, Councillor Guido?
No, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Ross? You're muted, Councillor Ross.
Sorry, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Just wondering why the Accessibility Committee and the Environmental Committee were not at least given the opportunity to look at this and comment. We have a number of parties who have commented on it, but these being two advisory panels, and I can only speak to the Accessibility Committee. We've spent a bit of time talking about this, the lack of continuity between sidewalks, and although I kind of understand your comments there, Director Heritage, I would like to see some more information about it, because we've just commissioned a active transportation plan where a large portion of that was designed for the continuity of movement. And it seems that this has come up, that there's a bit of an imbalance here between saving some trees and having a sidewalk stop and then start again. So if we're past the deadline for a possible LPAT committee, then I don't see the danger in it going ahead at this point.
Madam Mayor.
Director Heritage?
It's Mr. Nix. If I could ask Director Heritage to comment on the scope of what the LPAT could rule on if it did go that route.
Director Heritage?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If it was appealed to LPAT, it would be a de novo hearing, meaning that everything would be on the table. I guess as part of the hearing too, they would scope the issues, but everything initially would be on the table for review.
Further? Councillor Ross?
Yes, thank you. So mention was that we've passed that deadline, so that could happen at any point. Is that correct, that LPAT could become involved?
Director?
Sorry.
Or Robin?
Go ahead. I was just going to clarify. In the Planning Act, there is a certain time period based on the type of application. So I believe, again, they've been changing over the last few years, but I believe it's either 90 or 120 days for these types of applications that once it's past that timeline, the applicant then has the right to appeal for non-decision if no decision has been made on the applications within that timeframe. The applications were submitted in 2018 and it's now 2021. So it has been over 3 years, or at least over 2.5 years with respect to us processing these applications. So to your point, the applicant at any point can appeal for non-decision. The applicant in this case chose to continue working with the township because they thought we could work together towards a common plan that kind of worked for everyone, and that's what staff has put before council tonight.
Further, Councillor Ross?
No, those are my comments. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kieserbrink?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So it sounds like there's two schools of thought, one being that the community wants to protect their trees and the developer has worked extensively, as have staff. The other being that there's further discussion tonight with respect to accessibility with the sidewalks. Right now, a lot of legwork has been done, including those protected areas that are important to the community. I worry that if we continue to delay, we could lose our say, where once it goes to LPAT, not only do we have further legal costs, because we have to still provide representation there, but we no longer have any involvement or say. So I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Watton?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I would concur with Councillor Kieserbrink on the portion about LPAT, but I'd also ask the question to the councillors making this referral, that what happens if accessibility says they need a sidewalk all the way across, and the environmental committee says we need to keep the trees? I'm pretty sure we heard this evening that we couldn't have both, and it would seem to me that the developer has worked very hard to try and address saving as many trees as possible along with our staff. And quite frankly, I don't see a way or a reason to ultimately delay this, because because the developer has acted in good faith, and I believe that staff have acted in good faith, and I think everyone is doing their best to save whatever we can, and I think it would be ultimately a shame to further delay this development while we have the potential to save and address our residents' concerns as to the best of our ability, and respecting the concerns that they have. And through, as Councillor Kieserbrink said, through an LPAT situation, we may not have those decisions, and the hedgerow may ultimately be completely lost, and so on and so forth. So I will not support the referral at this time. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Those are my comments as well.
Thank you. Councillor Brown?
Through you, Madam Mayor. So if I understand correctly, if this goes to LPAT, then the LPAT rules on our trees. Would that be correct, Ms.
Rules
Prentice?
on everything, as I understand it.
Right.
Robin, our Director Heritage?
Yes, that's correct.
So we lose the opportunity to guide our own ship. If we continue to delay this, we're risking it now. And if we continue further, we're going to delay this longer, and that increases the chance of LPAT getting involved, and there go the trees maybe. Would that be something, is that reasonable to say that?
I would say so, Robin.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, potentially, yes, that is an option, or that could happen through the LPAT process, yes.
Okay, and in your estimation, these people have been fair with you?
Yes, we have worked hard with the developer to get to this point. To be honest, I think the developer would put in the sidewalk, but I think it's staff recognizing that if we are to protect the trees and do our best to protect those trees, then we were the ones saying we can't put the sidewalk on this portion of the street because of the impact it would have to those trees.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And there is a sidewalk on the other side of Union Avenue. Councillor Ross, as the seconder of the motion, do you wish to wrap up with a? Oh, okay. And Councillor McDougall, you put your hand down as well. So
sorry, Madam Mayor, it's Councillor. I hit the wrong button.
Go ahead.
If I may, I understand that the LPAT's been thrown in here, and rightfully so. It's something that we have to consider. But it's been 3 years, and now we suddenly have a rush without due diligence to look at all aspects. And I understand that, to Councillor Watton's point, that everybody has shown good faith here. But if one party says, the environmental committee says that we should keep the trees, and the accessibility committee says we should have a sidewalk, I don't see a problem with that. At least we have the facts in front of us and we can make a proper decision. So I think that I don't understand why this wasn't done beforehand, that we have some information in front of us. But if we make the assumption that LPAT is suddenly going to become involved and that they're going to rule against us, then I think it's to our detriment. So I thank you very much.
Thank you. I don't see any further speakers. So on the motion to refer, I think we've got some Councillor McDougall, is your hand up?
Yes, it is, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much. Just to the motion, I made the motion on the basis that 8.33 of the official plan refers to collector roads, and it refers to sidewalks being required in our official plan to be on both sides of the road. I also asked for the referral to go to the environmental committee because I know that they have trees and heritage trees in particular at heart in every single meeting. So I understand it's been 3 years and we've had 3 years to go to either of those committees and that we haven't done that, and now it's a rush tonight. So I look forward to the outcome of this motion. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, to the motion, we've got some opposing views, so I will ask Councillor Kiesebrink. Did you have your hand up again?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I apologize. I just was wondering could I ask a further question of Director Heritage?
Please go ahead.
Director Heritage, normally when planning applications are submitted, do we pick which committees respond, or are they just submitted and then the committees respond as they wish? Could you just clarify to Councillor McDougall's statement with respect to the consultation of the committees?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, generally we circulate applications to committees, specifically the Heritage Committee, if there are any significant heritage significant buildings or anything like that that is being impacted. Other than that, we generally do not circulate the applications, but as Ms. Prentice indicated, we do post the applications on our website for the public and for advisory committees to respond to.
Further through you, Madam Mayor. So in this case, it wasn't circulated with respect to the sidewalk because it came forward with a sidewalk, but the sidewalk has been removed because of consultation with the public. Is that correct, Director Heritage?
That's correct.
Okay.
As well as there's a sidewalk on the east side of the road.
Correct. And does it fall under, with respect to the legislation that Councillor McDougall referenced, does it fall under SCUGOG's jurisdiction to make the decision to remove the portion to accommodate the public to save these trees?
Yes, it's under, through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, yes, it is under staff's jurisdiction, certainly, to make that recommendation to council. Council can make that decision. I think it's also important to point out too, we've got a policy in the official plan, not only that speaks to sidewalks on collector roads, there's a policy with regards to the preservation of hedgerows. And it speaks to, in addition to trees located within a woodlot area, trees forming a cluster of trees consisting of 5 or more trees and containing at least one significant tree, and any significant trees defining a hedgerow consisting of 5 or more trees are to be protected. So there is a definite or specific policy in the official plan that speaks to the protection of hedgerows, and this would fall under that consideration. And that's why we work diligently with the landowner to protect this hedgerow.
Thank you so much, Director Heritage. And with respect to the reference or the question regarding due diligence with respect to environmental, any application that comes forward, all environmental consideration is as a part and parcel of that. Could you maybe just summarize that aspect of this application as well?
Sure, through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. There are a lot of considerations that staff take into account when forwarding a recommendation to council. We review the provincial policies all the way down through the regional plan, our local plan, and there are specific policies in there that we draw out and bring that to the attention of council, review those policies in light of the application, and come forward with a recommendation. And in this case, in discussions with the landowner as well as the surrounding residents, and in light of the policy that I just read to council, staff is recommending the 7-meter buffer and the preservation of the hedgerow.
So, well, just one final comment. Out of respect for Councillor Ross and Councillor McDougall's comments with respect to the committees, can it be something that for further developments that those committees could just be automatically consulted as the other, Kawartha Conservation and other groups are, just so that their comments are there for the record for future? Is there any reason why we couldn't just do that on an ongoing basis rather than, sometimes submitting, sometimes not?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, yes, we could do that.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That's all, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. CAO.
Actually, I was, Councillor Kiesebrink made a suggestion I was thinking of, so thank you. I don't need to speak. Okay,
thank you. So I think everybody has spoken now. So I will ask again. Ms. Frey, can you call the vote, please?
Voting is open, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I see the wrong motion.
Sorry, that was the motion to refer, Sandra. Did you provide that ahead of time, Councillor McDougall?
No, Madam Mayor, I did not.
Okay, so the motion is there and the voting is open.
Madam Mayor, I didn't move this motion. I believe it was Councillor McDougall who moved it, and Councillor
McDougall.
And Councillor Ross seconded.
Yes, that's true.
It says I moved it though, Madam Mayor.
Oh, okay. Has everybody voted?
It is open for voting, Madam Mayor. Should be good.
The motion is lost. Thank you very much. Moving on to the main motions, the recommendations as presented. We did have a mover and a seconder, I think, did we not? Sandra,
we did,
we
yes. Yes,
we
it was
did.
Councillor McDougall and Councillor Watton.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Guido, you had an amendment.
I did have the amendment. Do we need the amendment before we start asking questions to the report?
Okay, we can go for questions.
I mean, I'm happy to speak to my amendment right now, but I also have several questions that I would like addressed as well.
Why don't you go ahead with your amendment, because you know, then the questions can be on the total motion if your amendment goes through. Can you put up the amendment, please, Sandra? And you can speak to it right now, Councillor Guido.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and
I'll second that, Madam Mayor, for it to come to the floor.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the reason that I am requesting an amendment to the motion that is before council, and I apologize, I wasn't ready for questions yet, so I'm just going to speak off the cuff right now. We have seen with past development in town that there are oftentimes trees that are impacted negatively due to construction. Now, I have full faith in Mr. Brand that that will not occur. That being said, I believe we owe it to the trees, to the township, and the community to do anything possible we can to protect the hedgerow. Whatever number is determined, we need to protect those trees in that hedgerow. My amendment will speak to the fact of this extra level of protection with either a chain link fence or a removable chain link fence, so that it doesn't impair or impede with the development of the site, but also protects those trees that we have determined need to be protected. As I said, I have full faith that Mr. Brand and his team will do that. But this will give us and our residents the assurance that those trees will be protected throughout the development of the Chieftain site.
Thank you. We have a mover and a seconder. Questions to the amendment? Councillor McDougall.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, my hand was left up. No questions. Thank you.
No questions? Okay. Any questions to the amendment? Okay, to the amendment, then please verbally. To the amendment, in favor, yes?
In
Please.
favor?
Yes. In favor.
In favor.
Opposed? And that is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Guido. To the motion as amended. Any questions? It's been quite a lot of dialogue so far. Councillor Guido, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'm assuming that this means questions to the entire report.
That's correct.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. And I would first like to start with thanking staff for meeting with me several times to go through my questions that I have brought forth from residents as well as myself. That being said, there still are a number that I need to have addressed this evening, so if you will indulge me. One thing that we've heard many times referenced are heritage trees. We've heard it referenced this evening, and I've heard it referenced out in the public. Through you, Madam Mayor, to Ms. Prentice, can you please advise if any trees on site are actual heritage trees, and what qualifies or makes the determination if a tree is a heritage tree?
Sure, through you, Madam Mayor. No, there are no heritage trees on this site. It is my assumption that they keep being referred to as heritage trees just given their large size and associated age. A tree can be identified as having or potentially having heritage status either by a designation under the Ontario Heritage Act or through recognition under the Heritage Tree Program that's administered by Forest Ontario.
Thank you. Further, in respect to trees, there's been 4 butternut trees identified on site, and I believe 2 of them are required to be removed. In reading the report and the several attachments, the requirement for the replacement of these butternut trees are 20 trees combined with the combination of butternut trees and compatible species. Can you please speak to what the percentage or the split will be between butternut and other species, and why it can't just be all butternuts that are replaced?
Robin?
Sure, through you, Madam Mayor. Just to Councillor Guido, just a bit of clarification. There's actually only 2 butternuts on the Chieftain property itself, and they are in the woodlot. The other 2 trees that you're speaking of that will be removed are actually within the township's right-of-way along Josephine Street. So they are impacted by the Ribcorp development, as Ribcorp is required to reconstruct Josephine Street. So I just want to clarify that.
Okay.
Having said that, Chieftain and Ribcorp are kind of partnering on the butternut tree aspects related to the Josephine Street reconstruction. And as you mentioned, yes, they do have to be, there are compensation plantings that are put in place for those butternuts. I actually couldn't tell you the percentage off the top of my head, but the reason you do a combination of butternuts and other trees is to support those butternuts. So that those are requirements laid out under the Ministry of the Environment, and that's what the applicant has retained Beacon Environmental to kind of do that assessment in accordance with those requirements, and that's their requirement. And they are working with the Kawartha Conservation Authority on those compensation plantings on one of their land holdings.
Thank you. So it's outlined that the number of butternuts to be replaced is outlined by the Ministry of Environment. That isn't a formula that we create.
That's correct. That's not our requirements. That's a provincial requirement, and that's what they're adhering to.
Perfect. Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, through you, Madam Mayor, to Ms. Prentice, what additional measures or what? Let me start that over again. What will be the monitoring schedule for this site once construction starts? As we saw in the past with other developments, and I hate to use other developments, but this is some of the reasoning for the questions to this delegation is that in the past there has been some issues with other development sites. What's the monitoring schedule for staff to review to ensure that all of the site plan agreements are being followed through?
Sure, through you, Madam Mayor. The township actually retains a peer review inspector that goes out on regular occasions to inspect the site as it proceeds through construction. The developer is required to also have an inspector on site permanently to oversee the works to ensure that they're being met in accordance with those plans. And that would be, again, coupled with the township's inspector on a regular basis.
Thank you. And am I correct to understand that it's Mr. Brand, not himself, but they are the actual builders of this site?
Yes, that would be my understanding.
Perfect. Thank you. And through you, Madam Mayor, I apologize. If I'm looking at the draft plan conditions, number 30 states that fencing will be installed around the perimeter. What type of fencing are we referring to?
Sorry, I'm just getting there. So this is for perimeter fencing. Sorry, number 30 you're referring to, or 29? Yes. Okay, so the 29 refers to perimeter fencing, and this would be put in place during construction to make the site safe, so that people aren't playing in an active construction site. Draft condition number 30 is with respect to permanent fencing that would be put in place on any publicly owned lands. Typically, we like to put fencing in place to distinguish what's publicly owned versus privately owned. So where you have private residential lots adjacent to publicly owned lands, we typically require a chain link fence.
Thank you. And I'm just trying to get the site plan, the draft plan conditions up, because I had a question on number 34. I'm not sure if you can easily open that so that it can be casted and everyone can see my question.
The vibration monitoring program?
Vibration monitoring, yes. I'll just speak to that then. Which adjacent lands will be included in the vibration monitoring? Is that extended to homes on Union Avenue, on Victoria, Josephine? How far do we extend that vibration monitoring?
So this is dependent on input from a geotechnical consultant that the developer would retain to provide that input. So it takes into account the different works that are required and the different machinery, and then they would take a look at which properties are potentially impacted, and those are the ones that are offered the vibration monitoring specifically. So we do need some further details to determine the specific lots that would be offered that.
Okay, and the further details come at what point in the process?
Again, as part of detailed design. So they have a consultant come in and take a look at the construction methods that are required and which machinery is needed. And then that would determine the potential impacts that could be had, which would then draw out which lots would be offered the pre-construction surveys.
Okay, thank you. And through you, Madam Mayor, I have a few more questions and then I'm happy to pass it over to other councillors and then come back. Once the trees are conveyed over to the township, it says that the township will then protect these under the protection plan. What does our protection plan look like? What does the Township of Scugog protection plan mean?
I'm not sure where I've referred to a protection plan, but essentially once the township takes ownership of them, it would then become our responsibility to maintain, and typically lands and trees brought under public ownership are more heavily protected than privately owned trees, because it would be up to us to determine what we're doing with those trees. And in this case, because the woodlot and the hedgerow are intended to be protected, it would be a positive move to put them under public ownership in order to ensure that protection. I would note that there are certain draft conditions that require the developer to do some, for the woodlot, they would be required to do some edge management before we take ownership, just to clean it up a bit. Same with the hedgerow, there's certain requirements that the arborist has outlined that should be met within that landscape strip with respect to cleaning out some of the, I believe there's a dead maple or something on the edge of the hedgerow. So just making sure that it's cleaned up before we take ownership and maintenance of it.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Prentice. And under the draft plan conditions number 16, I believe it speaks to unsafe trees are removed. Is that what you mean by removing anything that may not be in good health?
Yeah, yeah.
And sorry, at what point do we know which of those unsafe trees will be removed? Is that again at the same time that we would have the arborist report, or we wouldn't because council won't see that again, but once approved is granted?
Yeah. So condition number 21 requires the owner to update that tree preservation plan. And as part of that, they would take a look at what trees are maintained, which would be the majority in the woodlot and the hedgerow, and then what would need to be cleaned up within those areas.
Thank you. And my last question for now, but I will have more. As a counselor, especially a counselor for that ward, obviously I've received many questions in respect to how many trees need to be removed. And I appreciate that at this point, we don't have a magical number to provide, and appreciating that there is a proper planning process where once we have provided our approvals or endorsement, that it goes off to regional. What is the plan to tie back to council to advise the actual number of trees that may or may not need to be removed?
So again, typically once draft plan approval is issued, we don't usually come back to council, but we're happy to provide that information to council. Are you looking for the details on the whole site itself, or just with respect to the hedgerow within the landscape strip?
I would say in respect to the hedgerow and the landscape strip, my worst case scenario in my mind is that this is approved this evening, and at some point an arborist determines that it's not 2 or 1 that needs to come down, it's several. I would just hope that at some point something comes back to council if we're deviating extreme numbers.
Again, it would just be once draft plan is issued, though, it wouldn't be coming back necessarily to council for an approval. So again, I'm happy to update council with that number, and staff, based on our preliminary response from our peer review arborist, is who's taken a look at the preliminary plans, and that's what we base our assumptions on moving forward, would only be impacting a couple trees. If it's impacting the majority of the hedgerow, then we do have an issue that we would have to bring back to council.
Okay, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, Ms. Prentice, but what is that number that you would feel is concerning enough to come back to council, or is there a number?
Again, I don't think there is a magic number, and I'm pretty confident I won't have to come back to council to say, you know, we're not saving this hedgerow, because that's why we did the due diligence, and having retained a peer review arborist to look at those now to understand what impact, if any, the servicing connection would have. So that's why we've asked those questions, because in our minds, we wouldn't come forward with this plan to say we're protecting the majority of the trees if we weren't confident that we were.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to leave this for now, and Madam Mayor, I would like to come back afterwards after other councillors.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Good questions. I have Councillor Watton. Are there any other questions from council? Okay, Councillor Watton, please go ahead, and then Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And just through you to, I guess, Ms. Prentice, when this, if and when this goes back to the region to get approval, are all the comments and everything with respect to protecting the trees, is that part of what goes back to the region, since they're the ones who, I guess, oversee the servicing? Am I correct in that? And are they made fully aware of like the concerns of the residents and of this council? Or is that a thing that doesn't really happen in the big scheme of things?
So the package would go, the report package you see ahead of you is what would be presented back to Durham Region Planning. But we have been working with Durham Region Works, who looks after the servicing, and they are fully aware of our intent with respect to protecting that hedgerow based on feedback received from the public. So as I said, we did have those preliminary discussions with the region of Durham. So they are fully aware of the intent with respect to that landscape strip and our goal in minimizing the impacts to that hedgerow.
That's great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Brown?
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor, for Ms. Prentice. If the trees are replanted someplace because they took trees out or whatever the situation may be, who is in charge or determines where those trees go and how large they are, or if in fact that's a significant thing to consider?
So there's a couple parts to that question. As part of any application that comes forward, we take a comprehensive look in terms of the site overall and how many trees overall are being removed. And then there is a requirement to have the developer plant new trees on the site that are required to meet a certain standard. And any trees, because sometimes they can't always replace the full amount of trees on the site. They then also have to provide financial compensation in lieu of plantings to the township, and the township would use those funds in the future to plant trees elsewhere. And that would again be up to the township to determine the size of those trees. But we do take into account, in terms of our tree planting ratios, the existing size of the tree. And so it's not just you took one tree down, you have to replant another. It does take into account, if it's a larger tree, then you might have to plant more trees versus a smaller tree, you might not have to plant as much. So it does take into account the size of the existing trees.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Anything further, Councillor Brown?
Not from me, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Kiesebrink?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If I could, further to Director Heritage's comments with respect to the region's recent work to upgrade their tree bylaw to their regional woodland bylaw, because they really are working hard to protect forests and especially the groupings of trees such as this hedgerow. Is there any possibility that we could just maybe add a paragraph to the report, and maybe this could just be direction to staff, but just to Councillor Watton, Regional Councillor Watton's comments as well, just to stress how important the trees are to this community as a part of this report, that in light of the fact that it's a little bit more sense of urgency for us.
We really don't have the ability to change a report. Is there something that you can suggest, Robin, as a direction to address Councillor Kiesebrink's concern?
Yes, again, staff will review the servicing plans so township staff can review the plans as well with the Durham region. So again, we can stress the importance of the trees and the minimizing of the impacts to that landscape strip and the hedgerow in that strip. So we're happy to take that back, and I think we've heard that message loud and clear.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kiesebrink. I don't have any further questions, so could we call the vote? Oh, sorry, Councillor Guido. Yes, you did say you had some more. Please go ahead.
Sorry. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just one last question. Wanted to circle back to when we had the delegation from Ms. Gross regarding a tree risk assessor. And I know I had asked prior if one had been, or if there is one that was used for this. I would like to ask Ms. Prentice again, is this something that we can require or request that a tree risk assessor is retained to determine the health of the roots should one or two trees be removed, what the impact would be?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I am of the assumption that Ms. Gross was asking for that to happen now before the decision was made without having the detailed design. In my opinion, an arborist has the knowledge to understand the impact to the remaining trees from that servicing connection. So I'm confident the person that we have retained who has that background can provide that input, but I'm happy to take that back because I don't understand the difference if that's a specific certification or not. I'm happy to confirm that, but perhaps it's a clarification to Ms. Gross, but I'm assuming she wanted that now because she was speaking to having an immediate understanding of the risk versus we would have a definitive answer based on having the detailed plans.
Thank you. I'm not sure exactly what Ms. Gross was intending, but I would feel more confident if you took that back and asked what the difference is and if this can be updated prior to the March 29th council meeting, just what the difference is and if it's able to be if it's something that they're able to provide as well.
I'm happy to take that back.
Oh, March 29th, not April 29th.
Yes, I assume that.
You're rushing spring along, Councillor Guido.
Rushing.
Further, Councillor Guido?
No, that's all, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So I think we better call a vote on this one. I don't know if there's anybody that may be against it. So Ms. Frey, can you call the vote, please?
Open for voting, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, thank you.
Madam Mayor, I don't see a vote. I'm vote in favor.
Thank you.
And Madam Mayor, I don't see my amendment, but I'm assuming that we voted on the amendment, so we're good. It's included.
Yeah, I don't see it either, but it would be the amended motion.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
we're voting on the main motion as amended. But
As
the
amended.
Okay.
amending motion is separate.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, everybody's in favor. That's good news. Thank you very much. And I also want to make mention, I'm very impressed with the developers who have worked together with RIBCOR and with the community as well as council. It's very much appreciated. Thank you very much. And now we will move on to 11.1, the Waterfront Action Plan. And it's 11.1. And I would look for a mover for the recommendations, please. Councillor Watton, Councillor Brown, and Councillor Kiesebrink, your hand is still up from before. So the motion is made and seconded. Questions or comments to Robin, who seems to be on the hot seat tonight? Any questions for Robin? Councillor Brown and Councillor Ross. Councillor Brown, please go ahead.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor, I have 27 questions here. I'll try to get through them as quickly. It was never 34, by the way, Councillor Ross. It was something less than that. It was 27, but I didn't ask them all, and I won't tonight. Page 4 of 17 in the first attachment, it says waterside terraces. So this is for Robin. Waterside terraces at the library, a new community facility, urban square, and so on and so forth. So I just want to confirm, because they're very vocal and they vote and they know what's going on. Seniors are going to be part of this, right? Because I see in the last attachment that a new senior center is expected, but it's well down the road on page 22 of 25. So are they just going to have to make do until then, Ms. Prentice?
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. The seniors would be part of that new multi-purpose community facility that's proposed. That would be combined with the marina building. It would have a community space that could be used by the seniors. So that was ultimately what's proposed to address the Latcham Center. If it was removed, it could be incorporated into this new multifunctional community facility. And yes, because it is a capital facility, which tends to have a larger capital cost, it was assumed to be further down the road. So any minor necessary renovations that are required would be subject to community services or public works departments in the meantime.
So subsequent, and through you, Madam Mayor, for the rest of this, if I may. So basically, the seniors have a place to go for until they get the new place, right? It's not like, do we have to shore up the Latcham Center for the next few years, or do we have to invest money in keeping it going, or what do we do, or do you know?
To be frank, I don't personally know those specific details. Again, that would be something I would refer to Director Coleman if she's on the line. But in terms of my understanding is, as long as the Latcham Center is open to be used by the public, that's what the seniors could continue to use.
Okay, thank you. Page 5 of 17 in the same attachment, and through you, Madam Mayor. Direct economic benefits will accrue as a result of the redevelopment of the parking lot at Water and North Streets. Can you explain a little bit more about what those benefits might be?
Sure. So the township currently owns the municipal lot at the corner there at Water and North Street. And what this plan is showing was that if the township would consider selling that block to a developer, obviously there's the financial benefits from the sale of the property, as well as development charges and increased tax assessment that would be realized if that corner was developed. We have stressed all the way through, and this is something we would continue to work on. It would be important for the township to work on an agreement with whatever potential buyer of the property is to ensure that public parking was still a component of that development, either at grade or as part of a structure within the building.
Right, parking is so important. Page 13 of 17 in the same attachment, and again through the mayor. The hazard lands identified in the official plan vary from the hazard limits set out by the Kawartha Conservation. What does that mean exactly?
Sure, it was just recognizing that there is a difference between the hazard lands designation and the township's official plan, and it doesn't necessarily reflect the specific regulation area limits of the Kawartha Conservation Authority. So it was just clarifying that there are regulated areas outside of those hazard lands designations along the waterfront. And that's reflected in the hazard mapping that's also found within the report.
Okay, and I'm not sure who, this will be my last question, and I'm not sure who to address this to, either Chief Burney or yourself, Ms. Prentice. Last attachment, page 19 of 25. For example, assuming a 6-story development with a 22 square meter floor plate, do we have the capabilities to fight a fire in a building that's larger than 4 stories in this town, or am I missing that?
Chief?
Sure, I'll start with this one through you, Your Worship, to the councillor. Thank you for the question. In fact, we already have a 5-story apartment building facing the waterfront now. So I would say yes. If you look at capabilities and your question capabilities, are you thinking, of an elevated device or something like that? It's not necessarily a requirement. And why I say that is a lot of buildings of this type of design are compartmentized and have adequate fire protection measures within them, such as sprinklers and standpipes, hose cabinets, and in some cases specialized suppression systems to help contain a fire to a compartment. These buildings are built on that compartmentization premise, and fires usually happen within the compartment, the unit, the apartment, or the dwelling. And with that and fire safety plans, the fire protection or fire attack of that type of building is usually fought from within or inside the building, pushing the fire out over, i.e. a balcony, out a window, etc. So
okay.
I hope that helps you.
Yeah, it does. That's great. Thanks, Chief. And thank
You're
you
welcome.
for the time, Madam Mayor. That's good for me.
Thank you. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Ms. Prentice, thank you for this report and your involvement with it. Throughout the process, the feedback from the residents has been, as you said, been extensive and great. But one of the threads throughout has been I guess the lack of representation from certain of our demographics within the community, mainly younger people or younger families. And I know throughout your updates as we've gone along, you've constantly tried to engage those people. Maybe could you just speak to what your end results were as far as the percentages of the demographics and how that line up with what is the true demographics of the region?
Robin?
Sure, through you, Madam Mayor. I don't have the exact percentages of the groups we hit, but I feel like overall we did try and hit the different age groups, and I think we were successful in doing that. We did hear a lot from the seniors initially, but throughout even the design workshops, there were different age groups, which I thought was interesting to see them all working together on these concept plans. And then we did have our targeted youth focus sessions. So we went into the school prior to COVID and were able to talk to the students that way. But we also had a youth focused virtual session closer to the end of the process. And that was actually very successful. We received a lot more feedback than we initially thought we would from that age group. And that was more targeted to the high school grouping. So I think that was successful in getting the younger generation as well as a lot of the adult and older generations involved. So we did try and provide a number of different venues throughout the process and consultation options. And I think we were successful in getting input from the different age groups.
Okay, great. That's good. That's good to hear, because I know that was a concern for many people. The second question is, and I don't know if Ms. Prentice, you can discuss this, or perhaps it's something for the CAO, but I guess the question now is what's next? We have this document in front of us, and as I say to many of my constituents, it's great to have these blue sky ideas, which this report has a lot of them in there, especially when you look at the price tags that are involved. Going forward, how will the township use this document when it comes to, say, the washrooms that are coming online in a couple of years, hopefully, when what we're capable of providing and what this report gives may be two different things?
You know, I think this would be an opportunity for our CAO because I know that he had some comments to make, and it kind of relates to what you were asking, Councillor Ross. So, Mr. CAO, would you like to comment at this point?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Ross asked a very good question because you know, you hear the saying, the buck stops here. But before I answer that specific question, there's a few things I would really like to underscore that both you and Ms. Prentice mentioned previously. You know, the report, it really is exciting and it is significant. I think Councillor Ross recognizes that. The vision it presents was developed with a significant community engagement participation from a broad range of the people across the community, both for the 3 or 4, I think 3 sessions that were specifically targeted to youth, as well as other attempts to reach out to the community. You know, municipalities that are lucky enough to have a lakeshore recognize the importance of the waterfront to the community. It really is a jewel. You know, impacts us so much in this community. It's part of our economic and tourism engine. It's a natural gathering place where people can be active and engaged, or just sit back and enjoy the surroundings while taking in nature. But it's all those plans exciting. It's not going to happen all at once for a number of reasons. You know, this really is the first step in an incremental plan. It has laid out the short, medium, and long-term phases so that we have reasonable aspirations in terms of a logical step on how to get there. And this long-term vision for the waterfront will take patience from the community and commitment from the community and future councils, as you and Robin mentioned. And I think what Councillor Ross is leading up to is we need to develop a plan to finance the various phases, and including taking advantage of whatever grant opportunities are available. There is no magic solution in terms of how to do this. This vision for our waterfront, it really is going to take an incremental stepped approach with a continued focus on various parts of the plan. It really, in my mind, it's one of the signature pieces for this community that has to be put it right up there with the priorities when we're dealing with other items, and we have to figure out ways to work it into our capital program as we move forward, understanding both the capital impacts and the operating costs of the things that are being brought forward. So I wished I had a simple answer in saying that we could, you know, just pay for it or work it into a plan and have it done easily, but it's not going to be. And I think we really have to take pieces and build on those pieces and take those incremental steps so that, you know, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, we look back and marvel at what we achieved and still have those aspirational, that aspirational commitment to reaching what was proposed in this plan. It won't be easy, but we'll get, you know, taking that stepped approach and a piece at a time, we can make some great strides towards this.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Ross?
Well, you've done a nice job there, CAO. Yes, it does. Thank you. I guess just a follow up to that, I think, and maybe this is a question again for the CAO, is will there be a communication strategy also implemented with this? And that I think it's important to manage expectations, as you alluded to. I know when speaking with my constituents, there's been a number of things that have been put on hold or have been extended until this plan comes out, and we're looking at, you know, what's happening with the ball diamonds or what's happening with the tennis courts. And the answer has been, well, once we get the waterfront plan, then we'll have an answer. So we have this now. Now a lot of things can fall into place, but in manage expectations so that people don't see this and say, well, here we go, let's have it all tomorrow. Maybe you could just speak to how we're going to communicate that with the public.
Well, I would have to ask Ms. Prentice or Ms. Bowers to comment on a specific plan, but it's not just one plan. I think this is, in reality, a continuous communication plan to manage expectations, because that is part of the battle, managing the expectations and our ability to deliver. So I'll have to pass it over to either one of them to comment on it, and I'm sure it's going to be evolving process every year in terms of communication. So,
okay, I'll call on Director Bowers to start this conversation, and then maybe Robin can get in on it afterwards. Director Bowers? Are you muted? You're not used to being called Director Bowers. Okay, Robin, you go ahead, and we'll call on Director Bowers later.
Sure. I think Ken said it great, and I would welcome Director Bauer's input as well. But yeah, it'll be continuous communication as we incorporate items into our annual budget plans as we move forward, or when we're applying for grants and when we're successful in getting some of those grants and implementing some of the components that we're seeing in this plan. I think it'll play into the ongoing communication strategy with respect to getting that message out there, with respect to how the plan is being implemented.
Okay, thank you. Director Bowers, are you on the call? You are muted.
Madam Mayor, that's okay. I can follow up with
Okay.
Director Bowers later on. Thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. CEO, for your comments.
Okay, thank you very much. And nothing further, Councillor Ross?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Watton?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And first off, to Robin and to everyone, it's a great plan. There are some things that, and I presume it's a fluid plan, so that, even though we say in 5 years we're going to do this, that it may be 3 years pending funding or 10 years pending funding. What I like about it, the plan affords the opportunity for other groups perhaps to take some ownership for some of the parts of the plan. I know that there is, it's called the activity zone, like at Kinsman Beach and that it's a skateboard, basketball, climbing wall, etc. Or can we also plan, and as I said, I'm hoping this is fluid, it doesn't have to change anything, but the older youth, they like to just hang out and be able to play their music and maybe have free internet and charging stations and like a shelter and stuff. Can areas be created kind of for that, as well as the more sport-minded ones, like even ping pong tables and stuff like that? I'm assuming those are simple things that could be taken into account as this plan unfolds. Could you just speak to that?
Sure, through you, Madam Mayor, for sure. And I kind of agree with you. I like calling it a fluid plan, and you can build on it and evolve and adapt as we move forward. So yeah, if it came down to it, and that baseball diamond happens to be relocated or removed, and we're able to plan for that activity zone, then for sure I would see kind of doing some design type of open houses with the centered and focused on getting the youth involved in helping to design that area, and definitely taking into account some of the passive areas for the youth in that section as well as the active. So there were some seating areas, and there was the idea of that extension of the terraced armor stone rock kind of built into the grade coming down from Water Street, where you could still have some of that kind of more informal seating for some of those hangout spots as well.
Right. Okay, that's great. I'm glad to hear it, because I do think, and the trends change all the time. So as long as it's fluid, then by the time we get to it, perhaps we will be top notch, right in on top of the trend. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And speaking of being fluid, When we're doing some of the underground work, like the water access for the washrooms, you know, that it would be a perfect opportunity to add some drinking fountains and for the people and their pooches as well. So glad to hear that there's that fluidity. Councillor McDougall.
Sorry, yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you all for the presentation and hard work on the waterfront study. Just having a look at, I think it's page 14 of the report, and I'm just curious, it has to do with the demographics of our community. Is this the kind of report that you would use to send out to prospectus grant opportunities? Is that what this is used for, through you, Madam Mayor?
Robin?
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. You would use this report to kind of provide that backing as the underlying plan that supports moving forward with the individual component for which you're applying for funding. You would also, depending on when you're applying for that funding, would have some updated stats as well to go with that.
Further, Councillor McDougall?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So when I have a look at the demographics for Scugog, I see it's at about 0% growth since 2011, and primarily we're somewhat older, not a lot of immigration, and we're homogenous, I think it says, with not a lot of visible minorities. Do we need to work to change some of these things to attract future grants, or will those statistics maybe help us to attract some future grants to assist us in maybe, I mean, being a GTA municipality, to actually have some growth even on par with areas outside of the GTA itself, it looks like. I'm just not sure exactly. It's kind of the demographics sheet kind of confirms what I've thought has been kind of stagnant around, or static, I'd say, in Scugog for a while, if that's fair to say.
That is the past, and as we know, we're getting quite a bit of development now, and those demographics will change. And I believe Robin said that it would be updated before that would be part of a grant application. Robin, do you want to comment any further on that?
No, that's exactly right, Madam Mayor. The stats that went into this were primarily based on StatsCan information, and as we all know, the census is upcoming, and you will see a change as we have more development, and we're providing a different range of housing types. So we are starting to see, and this is what we're hearing from the developers, we are starting to see more younger families uptake or buying these new homes that are being developed. So I think you will start to see a bit more of that shift. And that's what I meant by we would update with whatever statistics we have available to us at that time, whenever we're applying for those grants.
Right, thank you. Councillor McDougall, further?
No, that's great. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for all the hard work on the waterfront plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McDougall. Our CAO, Mr. Nix, did you have something that you wanted to add at this point?
It was just in conjunction with Councillor McDougall's comment about the information for grants, whether it be a detriment or a benefit. I think anytime you're applying for a grant and you have a plan like this, is well backed with a lot of the foundational stats from the past, some of the things we're struggling with, and some of the challenges we're facing, it helps us go forward. It's not necessarily the specific history that we have, it's the stats that are available and understanding the challenges that we're facing going forward. So I think it adds information that is always valuable when applying for grants.
Thank you. Councillor Kiesebrink.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I really like what Councillor Ross was talking about with respect to a communication plan. I know in the past when we launched our Scugog tourism website, there was a press release that went out, and Chris Hall did a story on it, and in the perspective, it talks which is a real estate article. It talks about Scugog, the best kept secret for commercial development. So and it talks about our rural charm, our lifestyle, it shows our waterfront. I really think that out of respect for all the work that's been done in our community and all the different participants who did get involved, that it would be a good idea, and maybe we could just refer it back to staff, but at the very least, a press release and a mayor's message and maybe a chambers of commerce speech and what have you. It's hard in the pandemic, but I do think we should toot our horn a little bit and just tell, share the news, quantifying what it looks like and the stages, but still share what we envision together. Because if we share our dreams, we can get there. So anyways, I just wanted to express support for that idea. I really think now that we've completed the work, actually sharing it and quantifying it and doing it not just as we go along, but intentionally is probably a really good idea. Thank you.
Thank you,
Madam
Councillor.
Mayor?
Yes, please.
If I may, Councillor Kiesebrink is entirely right, and I know that we will be promoting this plan, and we'll be talking about it when it's approved by council. It's a significant thing. We could not let it just lay and not be promoted. I believe Director Bowers is able to connect at this moment, and perhaps if that's the case, she could talk about potential communication. If not, we'd be glad to bring something back to council on that.
Perfect. Director Bowers, are you able to chime in on this now?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, and I apologize. I think it was Councillor Ross. I think that had some questions, and I was on a call, so I apologize for that. I'm tuned back in, and rest assured we will have, this will be the third phase of communications plan for this project. If you've had a chance in recent months to visit the MyScugog landing page for the Waterfront Action Plan, tells the wonderful narrative of bringing us through from the beginning of consultation through to the videos from the kids at the schools and the very many ideas that we heard along the way. So now here we are, and we will see the plan most likely ratified in a week or so. And so we will be connecting again to celebrate and tease out and introduce some of those very ideas now that are being approved.
Thank you. Yes, it's something to celebrate, and we're all very excited about it. And I know that the hundreds of people that and even the ones that didn't partake in the opportunity to have their input, they're all excited too. So it's big news, and I know that you'll make the most of it, Director Bowers. So. I don't see any more hands up, so ready to call the question. All those in favor of the recommendations, say yes.
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 In favor?
In favor.
In favor.
Thank you. I don't hear any opposed, but I'll ask, are there any in opposition? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. How about we have a 7-minute break? It's 8:58. How about we get back at 9:05? Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Welcome back, and I'll ask our clerk to call the roll call, please.
Thank you. Councillor Watton, are you present?
I am present.
Councillor McDougall?
Yes, I'm here, Lee. Thank you.
Councillor Guido?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Councillor Ross?
Present, thank you.
Councillor Kiesebrink?
Present.
And Councillor Brown?
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll move now to report number 11.3, contract administration and inspection contract awards. And I'll call on Kevin Arsenal, our capital project technologist, to present the report. And Kevin, sorry for the delay. You've been waiting around for a little while.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's all right. The Contract Administration and Inspection Contract Award Report is for the award of contract admin and inspection services on the Major Street Reconstruction Project to Chisholm Fleming and Associates. The Township's procurement bylaw requires a report to council for single source awards over $25,000, which this one is. Chisholm Fleming completed the design and tender documents for this project under a separate assignment last year and is well suited to oversee the construction portion of this project. I'll be happy to answer any questions on this report.
Thank you very much. Could I have a mover for the report, please? Get it on the floor. Councillor Ross. Seconder?
Councillor McDougall, second.
Councillor Brown and Councillor Ross. Thank you. Questions or comments to the report? Councillor Brown? Oops, no, your hand's down now.
I just lowered my hand there. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Okay. No questions or comments. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Any opposed?
In favor.
In favor.
Okay. Are there any opposed? Hearing none, that is carried. Thank you, and thank you, Kevin. And 11.4 is the Balsam Street Reconstruction Design Contract Award. And Kevin, this is your report, and I know that Councillor Brown has a question. Is there anything you'd like to bring to our attention, Kevin?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This particular contract award report for the Balsam Street Reconstruction Design is for the award, obviously, of the design tender preparation for the reconstruction between Old Simcoe Road and Rosa Street to SEMA Plus, who is one of our pre-qualified engineers. The reconstruction is forecasted for 2022 and will include upgrading the road from a rural standard, which means ditches on each side, to an urban standard complete with curb and gutter, storm sewer, sidewalks, regional servicing improvements, and pavement. This work is being coordinated with the development and servicing of 13 new lots on the north side of Balsam Street. Be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Brown?
Just thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Just housekeeping stuff. So the reconstruction is forecasted for 2022. Is that right? Pending budget approval, Mr. Arsenault?
Through the mayor to the councillor, that is correct.
Okay, and construction, you've informed me already, so I'll just share this with everybody. Construction expected to start in May of 2022. Can you please advise regarding the sidewalks and their installment and completion? What timeline are we looking at there? And it's just the one side of the road, is it?
Through the mayor to the councillor, that's correct. So the sidewalks are only required through our official plan to be on one side of a local road. This particular road, we'll be putting them on the north side of the road allowance, mostly to align with the new development that's going on the north side. The timing of that, they usually come a little later in the process. Obviously, you build up the road bed, you put in your curbs, etc. You do some grading on the sides, and then you put your sidewalks in. We'd also have to obviously coordinate that with the lot grading that will be occurring on the new lots as well before they get opened up and used. But that would be in the later part of the summer where those would be usable.
Okay, lots of high school students in that area. Some will walk and they'll enjoy having a sidewalk to walk on, I'm sure, but they'll also be biking. So do we make allowance for bike lanes of some kind there as well, or what do you do about that, Mr. Arsenault?
Through the mayor to the councillor, this specific local road, we would not include amenities such as bike lanes. We will be recommending them on other roads in that area through the AT, or Active Transportation and Transportation Master Plan, which will be coming forward in April for your review. But this particular one, we're just going to have our standard has a wider laneway that makes it a little bit more comfortable and easier for someone that is cycling to use the road.
Great. Thank you very much. That's it for me.
Thank you. I don't think I have a mover and a seconder for this report. Do I?
I can still move if you wish, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. And Councillor Watton seconds. Do I have questions? Councillor Watton, you have a question?
No, Madam Mayor, I was just
seconding
it.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, to approve the report and the recommendations, please answer yes or no.
Yes. In favor?
Yes.
In favor.
Yes.
And opposed? Seeing none, that is carried. Thank you, and thank you, Kevin. And now we move to 11.5, Williams Point Road, dedication of lands as a public highway. Kevin, Arsenal again, do you have anything you would like to add to your report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm actually going to pass this one on to Director Coleman for introduction as she wishes to speak to this report.
Okay, Director Coleman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Kevin. The capital budget for 2021 includes a design to look at some drainage improvements to Williams Point Road so that we can improve the water flow in the road and then make some improvements to the road itself. As part of the process, we did a title search for various laneways along Williams Point Road that connect the road to Lake Scugog and are needed as drainage, of stormwater drainage connections. We found that the ownership was not clear in the land registry office. While it was what has been acknowledged that it's township land, it wasn't clear in the system. So last year, the region of Durham registered these lands as on the township's behalf as being owned by the township. And now today we're bringing forward a report to, now that the ownership is clear, we want to dedicate them as public highway so that it's just clear what the usage of them are. And this is standard practice for municipalities to dedicate roadways and storm sewers as public highway. So there are 6 laneways along Williams Point Road that connect to the lake, as well as the road itself has never been dedicated as a public highway. It likely started off as just a private road for the residents, and then the township took it over, but we didn't dedicate it as highway at that time. So this is more of a housekeeping item to clarify that and to dedicate the road and these drainage areas. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them.
What about the name on the map? It says Caesarea Park Drive.
Thank you for reminding me of that, Madam Mayor. So again, this is something that's evolved over time. I don't know the full history. It's been known as Williams Point Road for a long time now, but the land registry records are out of date and they show it as Caesarea Park Drive. So that is something that we should also correct in the records as we do this cleanup.
Madam Mayor, if I could, I can't put my hand up. My machine failed.
Oh, okay. First of all, I need a mover and a seconder.
I was just going to move it to start.
Okay, thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Watton. Councillor Kieserbrink, you have a question. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Yes, thank you, Director Coleman, for your report, and thank you very much for continuing, both with the capital budget, the survey, and the preliminary design for the drainage improvement on Williams Point Road is sorely needed, and this is all a part and parcel of that. It's been a process, and I greatly, on behalf of the Williams Point Cottagers Association, who sent a letter to me today, they would like to greatly express their appreciation for this housekeeping work, especially because it will further the drainage improvements that are needed. They did want to specifically request, and I know that you contacted the Durham Region law with respect to the name, because Caesarea Park Drive is not, the road is signed Williams Point Road. So they were definitely wanting to see that change made. If we're doing the housekeeping with respect to these laneways, they would like to actually have the name formally changed as well. In addition, their park, which they own, is signed Caesarea Park, but it actually belongs to the Williams Point Cottagers Association. So they're asking if, while we're doing this housekeeping, if we could also change the name legally to Williams Point Cottagers Park. The other item that they wanted to point out is that on your diagram 0138, they're saying that that actually is called Heritage Lane. So right now on the map, it just says 0138, but it's actually signed Heritage Lane. So I'll forward the letter from the president to yourself, but they're asking if that number could be changed to its street name. They're saying that what's marked on the map as Beach Avenue is actually called Shady Acres Avenue. And it's signed as Shady Acres Avenue. And also Cedar Avenue on the map doesn't exist as far as anyone knows. There isn't a road there as far as anyone knows. So those are just some things that they wanted to point out. This would be a question in your report on page 2. You talk about the fact that this decision does not affect people's deeded access to the lake. They're they're fully in support of the housekeeping and the work that's being done. They do want to make sure that in council supporting and making these access areas, calling them highways, they just want to make sure that it's not going to affect their ability to use their own properties, deeded properties, waterfront. Maybe you could speak to that.
Director Coleman?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. Yes, they will still be able to, if they have a deeded access to those lands, that will continue. That won't change with these changes at the registry. If there's anything physical on those properties that might affect their personal land or anything, during the design process, we will be meeting with people that it could affect something on their property and working out solutions that will work for both the township and the property owners.
Okay. It was asked if the people that are affected, if they could be given a letter, because nothing has been communicated to them. We realized that a year ago when the region made these changes, there was no public consultation as per your report, but it does affect them. So again, coming back to communication, if we could specifically give a letter to the parties who are directly affected, to give them something in writing from the township as to the decisions that have been made and why, and just reiterating, that their deeded access isn't affected, because I think that communication for these people would be very important.
Director?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, that is something we could do. It might be best to wait until the design is being awarded now. It's not coming to council because it's less than $50,000, but we'll be starting that process shortly. I think I feel more comfortable having one-on-one discussions with people, and rather than just sending a letter that might not fully explain how it might impact each individual property. So we will be having communications with those landowners through that process.
Yes, this is not coming from me. This is the president of the Williams Point Cottagers Association. He's just asking, you might even just want to send them a letter with a copy of the report. He's just asking, because it's directly affecting these property owners and it's a decision being made about property that they formerly owned, just that they could have some sort of communication from us. I'll just leave that with you, but that was a request that was sent to me today.
Okay, and And as you and I talked about earlier today, we'd also be happy to meet with the president of the Cottagers Association and give them an update on all aspects of the project as well.
Yeah. No, the township has been great all the way through, and they're very appreciative. So I'll just leave that with you, and I'll forward this letter with the other roads that where the names don't seem to match up with the report. I'm just wondering if there's can that just be direction to staff, or do I need to make an amendment with respect to these other roads?
I'm going to ask Director Coleman and our clerk if anything has to be changed in the recommendations, because certainly I think with everything that you've said, there may have to be some changes in the bylaw before it comes back to council. So Director or Madam Clerk, what is your suggestion to move forward on this?
Madam Mayor, I can start, and then the clerk can add if she has more. With respect to the name of the road, I think that we should edit the bylaw to indicate that we now want the road referred to as Williams Point Drive. With respect to the park, it's on private land, and I think all the laneways mentioned as well are private land. So I'm not sure of the process to change those names, if it's something the township would do, which I don't think. I think it might be something that the landowners may need to do. But we can follow up on that to figure out what's involved to change those names.
Okay, so would it be fair to say that what you can do, what we have authority to do, what we have ownership of, can be changed in the bylaw before it comes back on Monday?
Yes, Madam Mayor, that's correct.
So, Madam Clerk, is there anything that we need to change in the recommendations? Or can we just leave that as direction?
I would suggest that there be an amending motion put forward to make the change in the attached bylaw. There was wording provided earlier, but I could read it out for you if you'd like.
Yes, please.
So the amendment would be that the bylaw appended as attachment number 3 to the report be revised in clause 7, following the word highway, to add the words to be known as Williams Point Road, formerly Caesarea Park Drive. That looks like Sandra's put that up on the screen.
Okay, so Councillor Kiesebrink, did you wish to make that amendment?
Yes, I do want to make that amendment. I would just like to ask, because I believe I'd like to cover what we have done tonight, and because that's one less thing to do. But with respect to Heritage Lane and Beach Avenue and Shady Acres, they are on the map. So I'm just not clear if they're Director Coleman, are these roads like 0138, is that one of the laneways that's being converted to a highway, in which case we would own it, in which case we could call it what it's called, which is Heritage Lane?
Director?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the councillor, no, that's not one of the laneways that we're doing. Their laneways in this report don't have any names to them or numbers to them at all.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, then yes, I'm happy with this amendment as it stands for tonight.
Thank you. Seconder to the amendment? Councillor Watton.
Madam Mayor, my hand was up to second that amendment. Thank you very much.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you had a question from before. So, okay, so Councillor McDougall has seconded the amendment.
I'll withdraw, even though it says on the thing that it was for Councillor Watton and Councillor Kiesebrink. So it's okay, Councillor McDougall can, but on the e-scribe, it showed that we had already.
You had already forwarded that beforehand. Okay.
No worries. Thank you very much.
We're back to Councillor Kiesebrink and Councillor Watton. Thank you, Councillor Watton, for pointing that out. Questions to the amendment? Seeing none to the amendment, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
In favor.
In favor.
Yes.
Favor.
Opposed? Hearing none, the amendment is carried. To the amended motion, Are there any other questions? Councillor Watton, your hand is still up. Did you want to say something? Nope. Okay.
Could I ask one further question, Madam Mayor?
Yes. Please go ahead.
With respect, thank you. With respect to the park, if it's owned privately by the park, why does the township have a sign there that says Caesarea Park then? Like, should they just take that sign down or?
Director Coleman?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, I'll look into that, and if it's a township of Scugog sign, it probably should not be there. And I'd just like to add as well, as we're talking, I pulled up our GIS system, and Heritage Lane and Shady Acres Avenue are shown on there, and they are township property. So that is something we could probably add to this bylaw as well.
So do we need another amendment, Madam Clerk?
Yes, I think that would be in order.
Okay, so the names were Heritage Lane, was it?
That's correct.
Is there any history with that with you, Director Heritage?
No,
what was the other
not
thing?
as far as I know, Madam Mayor, but I can certainly look into it.
So what was the name of the other one, or can we form that into an amendment?
So the amendment would be that 0138 should be renamed Heritage Lane, and that Beach Avenue should be renamed Shady Acres Avenue.
Okay. Can we form that in an amendment, Madam Clerk?
Yes, we can. We can do it the same way that Councillor Kieserbrink just read it out, actually.
Okay, so Councillor
So that's
Kieserbrink, you've moved it. Councillor Watton, your hand is up. Are you seconding that? Councillor Watton?
Sorry, yes, I will, but I also had a comment about the park.
Okay, can we deal with the amendment first, or is that going to be something you want included in an amendment?
We can deal with it. We can deal with the amendment first.
Okay, thank you. There it is. Thank you. And are there any questions or comments to the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
In favor.
Yes.
In favor.
Opposed, please say no. And that is carried. Thank you. So we have two amendments to the motion now. And any questions or comments to the amended motion? Councillor Watton, is this a question to the amended motion?
No, it's not. I'll take my hand down, Madam Mayor, for that.
Did you want to make a comment about the park?
I do. I'm just curious if the park we're talking about is the one that the community association has with the small golf course, or if it's the park that is along the waterfront. If both parks belong to the association, because I don't believe they do, but I absolutely stand to be corrected. I think the one along the waterfront does belong to the township. So I just want to be sure that before we change anything on that we're not changing the name of a wrong park, even though we should change the name.
So if
Director,
I could, Madam
still
Mayor,
got the GIS up there?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I do. It looks like, well, it's not clear. It doesn't, the primary owner is not stated on the GIS.
So the president of the Cottagers Association said that they own both parks, so the one on the waterfront and the one where the clubhouse is, and that they pay taxes on both, that they fundraised to build those parks, and that they jointly pay the taxes for those two parks.
Okay.
So that's why they would like to get this cleared up as well, because there's been some misunderstanding about that.
Okay, so there doesn't seem to be a need to have another amendment based on that knowledge, and Director Coleman would probably look into it further, and as well as the signage. Is that okay, Councillor Kieserbrink? You in agreement?
yes, we would definitely like to hear back on this so that we can get that cleared up.
Okay, that's fine. And
Because
just
Director Coleman in her report stated that the township in doing the drainage work would need
you're clicking in and out, Councillor Cusabrink. At least to me, you are. Can we leave it at that then?
I was just saying that the Director Coleman mentioned in her report that the drainage work that's needed would involve access to the park. So clarity as to who owns the park and getting that clarified in the legal documentation with the region would be important. So I do think that we should pursue and finalize this question.
Of the ownership.
Yes, because the Cottagers Association understand that they own both, and they've fundraised and built them and pay the taxes on them jointly.
Yeah, Councillor Cusabrink, I did say that Director Coleman would check into this before next week and the signage, and if indeed it is their property, which I'm sure it is, we will have to make some arrangements as far as what works that we have to do that may be on their property. So,
okay.
Do you need anything else, Director Coleman?
No, thank you, Mayor. No, I'm good.
Okay, so we're good to go. Okay, on the amended motion, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
In
Yeah.
favor.
Yes.
Opposed, say no. And that is carried. Thank you very much. The last report is 11.6, and it's the Stormwater Management Pond Inventory and Inspection Contract Award. And I'll call on Kevin Arsenal once again.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. The cleanout and rehabilitation of municipal stormwater ponds is a critical component of the township's infrastructure maintenance program. The swim ponds to be cleaned and or rehabbed each year will be prioritized based primarily on the swim pond inventory and inspection. This is essentially the same kind of plan that we do for the roads needs study and the bridge inspections each year, but now we're doing it for our ponds. So we'll be utilizing this to identify those ponds that are going to be worked on and maintained. So we are recommending that the contract for the swim pond inventory and inspection be awarded to SEMA Plus. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. And when you say swim ponds, I don't want our listeners to think that you can swim in. It's SWM,
please don't.
Water Management.
Correct, that's an acronym.
Yes. To the recommendation, do I have a mover, please?
I'll move it, Madam Mayor.
Councillor McDougall Councillor McDougall and Councillor Cusabrink. Questions to the report and to the recommendation? Seeing none, all those in favor say yes.
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 In favor.
Opposed, say no. And that is carried. There is no new business, no closed session, and I'll look for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Guido. Right on the mark there. Seconder? Oh, we want to stay.
Second.
Councillor Watton. All those in favor, say yes.
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 Opposed, say no. Thank you very much. It's been a busy night. It got a lot of important business done tonight, and I want to thank council for your involvement and your good questions, and certainly thank you to staff for excellent reports, and certainly all the work that has been done on the Waterfront Action Plan and the Chieftain Development. Robin, congratulations. So thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Good night.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good night.
Thank you.